In October of 2013, I got my first ever Animal Crossing game, New Leaf. I didn't know what to expect from the game other than the villagers, customizable houses, and me's, but I was immediately enamored with it. Because of that, I would fall in love with the other games in the franchise, which would satiate my want for a new game for the time being. But the one entry that always eluded me was Wild World for the Nintendo DS. Animal Crossing Wild World was released in November of 2005 here in the States. It would follow the footsteps of its predecessor on GameCube, and while the DS didn't have the same amount of power as that console, the game would find its own identity within the new features it had to offer. And to be completely honest, I just never got into this one growing up. Not that I had anything against the game, I just never got into it. I have a vague memory of trying one time in the late 2010s, but ended up switching back to New Leaf instead. And even despite that, I just never absorbed that much information on the game other than it was kinda divisive. From my experience, some people would either sing the game's praises to the highest of heavens, or they would call it the worst mainline Animal Crossing game. But after years of not seeing what Wild World had to offer, I recently decided to give it a good shot to see where my opinion would land. And also so I can make a follow-up to the GameCube video I made 3 years ago. Holy crap, it's been that long? And after giving Wild World my undivided attention, I can safely say that this game is actually great. I ended up enjoying my time with this one a lot more than I initially thought. Despite what many people think, Animal Crossing isn't really a series where new entries make the previous ones obsolete. Each game likes to excel in a few specific areas, and at the end of the day, it really comes down to what you value in the series. So, let's find out how this all applies to Wild World. This game deserves a lot of respect, as it added so many new features that are staples to the franchise, while also being such a unique experience in and of itself. Today, I hope to give this game the respect it deserves, as we take a look at what made Animal Crossing Wild World so special. So here we begin, inside a taxi this time instead of a train. Here, the sailor from the previous game, Kapp'n, would throw a questionnaire in your face instead of Rover. Rover's still in the game as an Easter egg, but come on, I kinda miss the nosy little cat. But it's pretty much the same song and dance from the first. You answer a questionnaire that somehow reconfigures your face, and much like the previous game, you're gonna be white no matter what. Not a whole lot of progress here. You arrive at the village, do some chores for the big Nook, meet your neighbors. Nothing much has changed in terms of the core experience. But there are a lot of changes that Wild World makes that would separate itself from its predecessor. The most obvious is how the overworld is presented. Gone is the acre system from GameCube, and here to stay is the rolling log format, which would be used from this point on in the series. The camera's been shifted upwards, so it's no longer at an almost top-down view. Now, in the beautiful year of 2005, the sky is visible to the player. In fact, it takes up the whole top screen of the DS. This was because Nintendo wanted a secondary control scheme to the game where you can use the touchscreen to move around your character and interact with the world. You can still use button controls 100% of the time if you want, but the touchscreen streamlines a heavy amount of UI navigation. Sorting items and writing letters have never been easier in any Animal Crossing game up until this point. Which, we're only 2 entries in, so I would hope that'd be the case. But with the DS also comes the D-pad, meaning you can only move your character in 8 directions. It feels kinda rigid, especially compared to the more smoother movements in GameCube. It also makes using tools a little tedious, like fishing. Usually you'll be making a lot of minor adjustments to get into the position you want, but the stiff controls of Wild World makes it slightly more difficult. And they also removed the ability to sneak around with the bugs net. This makes catching certain bugs or hitting certain villagers much more difficult as a result. These are quirks that I eventually became accustomed to, and they don't ruin the game by any means, but as a first-time player, I'd be lying if I said it wasn't a little jarring. The tools introduced in this game are the watering can and slingshot. The watering can was introduced so you can, believe it or not, water flowers. They've been given quite the overhaul since the last game. Back then, you could just buy whatever flowers of whatever color, but here it's quite different. To get specific colors, you have to water 2 nearby flowers, and sometimes a new one of your desired color will pop up. In addition, flowers can also start to wilter. There was a time I hated this feature because I used to think it meant you had to pull them out of the ground, but as it turns out, you could just water them and they'll turn up the next day. And it took me 12 years to figure that out. And the slingshot allows you to shoot things down from the sky. Whether it be balloon presents, Pete the Mailman, or a literal UFO, you'll always be glancing at the top screen in case there's any goodies up there. Now, of course, every Animal Crossing game has a randomly generated town. And here, it looks a little different than it did on GameCube. This is the only Animal Crossing game that doesn't feature cliffs, which, has its benefits. Town navigation is easier than ever without them. You'd always have to look for inclines in order to get from one level to another. But on the other hand, the town looks less dynamic and loses a bit of personality geographically. One of the best parts of GameCube was seeing what kind of wacky town generation you could get, but that really isn't present in this one. There are some instances where the river would split and you can get these mini islands, but otherwise there really isn't much here. Also, there's a ton of dirt. Like, a lot of dirt. Yeah, this might be overkill. I actually don't think dirt is a bad idea, but I kinda wish you could choose where the dirt goes, you know? Like, making your own dirt paths or something. Like, that would be kind of interesting. We'll get to you when we get to you. Even though this was long before village customization became the norm, I've seen a lot of really cool Wild World villages on YouTube. A big part of this is due to the ability to place custom tiles on the ground. This is one of the best things introduced in this game. Sure, it takes a long time to set every tile on the ground, but it's easy to adjust and satisfying to get right. There are so many different vibes you can give your village with this simple addition. Anyway, I decided to name my town Ruby Hill, and when I moved in, I was greeted with some pretty cool villagers. I got Anchovy, a quite silly looking bird, Lily, the super endearing frog, and my old nemesis from New Leaf, Monique.
Here is Monique. Ugly, right?
You know, I really do feel bad for treating her so poorly in that game. She didn't deserve it at all. But you know what? I'm feeling a little mischievous today. Let's go prank her. Just gotta trap her with the pitfall seed. Nope. Nope. Not quite. Not quite. Oh my god, dude. This leads into the biggest praise everybody gives Wild World, and that is the villager experience. Of course, this game would take a lot of what made the previous entry so memorable. Some villagers would be absolute jerks to the player and say some really out-of-pocket things, but would eventually start warming up to you as you became friends. Of course, every villager is their own individual, leaving room for nuance in how they speak to you. Even villagers with the same personality, like Butch or Static, felt kinda unique from each other based on subtle differences in dialogue. And yeah, much like the GameCube version, the dialogue here is great too. They feel like actual people and genuinely made me laugh a few times while playing. Sometimes there will be repeated dialogue, especially from Lily for some reason, but otherwise, this is one of, if not the most robust villager experiences out there. One of the things they added was the ability for villagers to ping you. Occasionally you'll be walking around and someone will notice you and strike up a conversation, usually to show you some silly letters they got or to ask you a question. It's pretty cool, but not as cool as eavesdropping, where you get to listen to two villagers have conversations with each other. I love seeing what sort of dynamics play out with this new addition. Also, you can now set up times for villagers to come over to your house and visit, like Lily did in my first hour of gameplay. With this simple feature, you can become closer friends with certain villagers, and it's really cool. Also, when Lily visited me, she just unpromptedly asked me how much I liked myself. I'm working on it, okay, Lillian? Villagers can also get sick now, and unlike newer games, they stay under the weather for quite a long time. I mean, Margie was sick for like 2 weeks, and I was genuinely concerned that she was gonna die or something. The best thing they introduced for these guys is the hobby system. Whether it be fossil hunting, furniture collecting, fish catching, they'll go on for weeks about how much they love partaking in one given activity, and they'll let you join them. Monique had a fondness for pink furniture collecting, so the game let me give her some, and boom, friendship points. Lily wanted me to catch as many fish as possible and make her home an aquarium. I really wonder why. And Margie was obsessed with collecting new clothing items. I wonder if that has a correlation to the movie. The villagers are so full of personality and depth in this one. They also telegraphed the villagers moving out way better than GameCube. If a villager wants to leave, they'll be in boxes for 2 days, and during this time you can actually convince them to stay if you beg hard enough. It won't always work, but when it does, it's kind of rewarding. But you know what's even more rewarding? Receiving a villager's photo. If you and a villager become good enough friends, they'll give you a photo of themselves with their favorite quote written on the back. This incentivized me to become friends with all of my villagers, even if I did find receiving their photos to be pretty easy in this particular entry. Overall, you can really tell the developers tried to make these villagers come to life, which they succeeded. They're not too mean unlike in GameCube, but they're not pushovers with faux niceness unlike the newer games. It's that nice middle ground that they meet. Pairing that with all the features I just mentioned is what really makes them so excellent in this game. It really is no wonder why so many people praise the villagers in this game.
except that they got rid of Hank.
House decoration is pretty fun, but kinda flawed. The majority of the GameCube furniture sets are retained here, with some new additions too. And the first thing I noticed was the fact that you can store a ton of items of any kind in your closet. You have 60 slots, which isn't that much compared to newer games, but it's still a really nice feature they added. And the house is much bigger this time around, with there being 5 rooms, opposed to GameCube's 3. Now, the additional rooms in Wild World are 6x6 instead of the main room's 8x8, which is kinda weird, but not really a huge deal. Another strange choice they made is that there's only one player house in the entire game. That's right, if you want more players in one town, you'd all share the same house. While that is bizarre, it does make sense in the context of this being a DS game, which is a much more personal console. You're probably not going to have a communal experience with a handheld, unlike the GameCube. It's most likely a matter of technical limitations. Just like how there's a maximum amount of furniture you can put down before being told that your floor will give out. Overall, some improvements here and there have been made, but due to this game being stored on a low-end Cheez-It of a cartridge, it never reaches its full potential. The gyroid from the first game is absent, but now you have an attic, where if you lay in bed, you'll be able to save the game. Or from pressing the start button, that works too. It would be really nice to have a save and continue feature, but I'm not gonna blow a gasket over it. But what about the places you'll visit? Well, for one, Tom Nook's shop has barely changed. He'll sell some more items like notes and bottles or medicine, but for the most part it's pretty much all the same. Well, except for when you unlock Nookington's, where a barber shop is attached. This place is called the Shampoodle, and with it comes the newcomer Harriet. Of course, since the game loves to determine your appearance based on questionnaires, she'll have you fill out a survey based on what vibes you want your hair to have, and it'll change accordingly. Because yes, this game introduces the beautiful feature of hair, and doesn't force you to wear a hat. Even if the horned hats are the definition of peak. Even if you can just search up Animal Crossing Hair Guide, going to the Shampoodle and filling out questions have always been fun and feel like a bit of an event. While sure, choosing exactly what hair you want at any moment is more convenient, you lose some of that Animal Crossing magic along the way. The Able sisters sell actual clothing items now instead of just patterns, including a wide variety of hats and accessories. This is also the only place where you can make custom designs, and as you can see, I tried to recreate the GameCube look. And you know what? I think I did a decent job. But what really surprised me here was the character of Sable. I've already talked about how she's the best non-villager NPC in Animal Crossing, but here it just feels like she had a lot more to say about her life and work. This game brings a whole ton of Sable lore into the mix, and I greatly appreciate it. But the weird part about it is that, well, since I'm a boy, she started to form a bit of a crush on me.
Like that's ever gonna happen.
The police station and dump have been omitted, however their functions are placed elsewhere. Copper and Booker have been moved to the town's border, and they're about the same as they were in GameCube. Except this time, you can invite players into your town outside of the border, more on that later, and change the town's flag to your liking. As for the dump, it's been replaced by a recycling bin found inside the town hall. Said town hall is a new structure, which also implements the old features from the post office, including changing your town's melody and paying your debt. Bonus points to the first person in the comments who can tell me what my town theme is. Pelly and Phyllis still work here depending on what time of day you're playing, and you can also see Mayor Tortimer in the background at certain angles. There's no more Wishing Well, which means no more Farley, but to be honest, I think that just adds some elusivity to the character, so I'm okay with it. There's also no more Lighthouse either, which is a bit of a bummer, but to be honest, if you could get rid of anything in GameCube, I guess the Lighthouse is okay. As for the museum, Blather still curates it, but there's a few noteworthy changes. First off, the music. It's completely different than how it was in GameCube, and I think it might be for the better. It's what the rest of the franchise would go on to use in their museums going forward. Also, Blathers is now certified to assess fossils himself, meaning you no longer have to ship off unassessed fossils and wait a day for them to come back assessed. This dude got educated between games. Here, there's also 2 new rooms you can visit. The first being an observatory, where Blathers' little sister, Celeste, can help you on viewing constellations at night. You can even see some of the ones you've made on the top screen at certain hours. Just a little touch of customization that I really appreciate. But the other room is one of Wild World's greatest contributions to the franchise. The Roost. Here is a cafe that's open 24/7 where you can just chill out and grab a cup of coffee. Served by the one and only Brewster. I love Brewster. This guy is so chill. Much like Sable, he starts out pretty reserved, but he'll warm up to the players the more frequently you interact. This is also where KK Slider would perform his music on Saturdays instead of at the train station. Outside of that, there isn't really a whole lot of function when it comes to the Roost in this particular entry. But god dang it, I'd be lying if I said I didn't love visiting the Pigeon Man. Also, yes, he starts putting pigeon milk in your coffee, and the joke's been done a million times, you don't need me to do it. And occasionally, some non-villager NPCs will show up as Easter eggs, such as Lyle. We'll get to him in a second. But one of the coolest features in this game that I don't see a lot of people talk about are the episodes. They're pretty rare to encounter, but on certain days of the year, one of the special NPCs will sigh and you can ask them what's wrong. Then they'll talk to you about certain aspects of their personal lives. There's even a little bit of character drama that occurs, but it really goes to give these characters a whole lot of dimension, and it's super unappreciated. This only shows up in Wild World and City Folk, and I hope someday it makes a comeback. Because honestly, not a whole lot of people realize how nuanced these characters can be, and it's pretty sad. A lot of people see these characters as nothing more than fun, happy mascots, when that really isn't the case. They have their own personal lives, their own struggles, and I love it when the games explore that. There's so much potential this feature has if it was reintroduced. Anyway, what was I talking about before that? Oh yeah, Lyle. I don't like Lyle very much. Dude just shows up to your house on Saturdays and begs you to buy insurance. He'll give you a massive load of text when trying to talk to him, and if you decline, he'll just follow you around. And insurance is so damn expensive. On one hand, yes, you do get 100 bells every time you're stung by bees or purchase a forged painting, but that ain't worth it. Lyle is super annoying to deal with. But you know what? That's kind of what makes him oddly endearing. See, part of the Animal Crossing magic is dealing with little shits like him. But Lyle's not the only special NPC this game adds. Sometimes you'll meet Dr. Shrunk, the axolotl, who'll teach you how to use expressions. I always enjoyed chatting it up with this guy. He's a half therapist, half comedian, so his dialogue was always entertaining. Not to mention a little bit shocking the first time you talk to him. If you know, you know. Caitlin and Katie aren't the most well-recognized NPCs, but they're here too. They're a mother and daughter separated, and you'll have to reunite them by traveling to other people's towns. And once they're reunited, it's really wholesome and sweet. I like these characters, they're pretty underappreciated. But then there's Pascal, and I really love this guy. He's a philosophical otter who'll randomly appear by the beach in the morning. And he's just such a cool guy. I mean, look at his design. He doesn't do a whole lot besides giving you ship-themed furniture, but I still love him. Before New Horizons reintroduced him through an update, I'd consider him one of the most underrated Animal Crossing characters out there. And luckily, most of the special visitors from GameCube are still here too. Characters like Katrina, Gracie, and Wendell are pretty much the same, while others like Sahara will have you deliver carpets around. But Crazy Red this time around is a real piece of work. Now he requires a password for entry at his shop and also sells fake paintings. And there's no way of discerning which ones are real or fake, so every time you buy art, it's pretty much a 50-50 chance of whether or not it's real. Wow, yeah, thanks a lot, you jerk! Oh, and Gulliver from the last game? He's in a UFO now. Don't know why, but he is. Joan still sells turnips as always, but this time she's brought something new into the mix. Red turnip seeds. You can only buy 1 bag per week, and you must water it every single day to keep it alive. Miss a day of watering, it dies. If you keep it alive for the next 7 days or longer, it can be sold for 16,000 bells. Now you could pluck it out of the ground before that and sell it at a much cheaper price than that, but like, why would you want to do that? The red turnips are only available in this game in City Folk, and I kinda miss them. It's a good way of keeping you playing every day of the week. Porter got laid off because there's no more train station, and unfortunately so did Don Rossetti. Now it's just Mr. Rossetti. Come on, like, I kinda miss your brother. He's like Luigi. And so was Chip, the fishing tournament guy that I totally remembered to mention in the last video. What the hell? The fishing tournaments still take place, but now Tortimer hosts them, which is fine, but I kinda miss the other guy. But I guess that's just bound to happen with the compromises you have to make with the DS. But one of the weirdest omissions to this game is the lack of traditional holidays. Back in GameCube, you had everything. Halloween, Thanksgiving, Christmas, Groundhog's Day, and a ton of original ones that made the community feel so alive. But in this game, most of those special events are gone and are instead replaced with monthly events. There's Flea Market Day, which allows you to purchase furniture from villagers and vice versa. And Yay Day, where you hand out compliments to your villagers. That's it. That's literally the whole premise. And you can roast them if you want, but I wouldn't do that because that's mean. In February, there's the Bright Nights, where villagers put up lights every day for a week, and you can vote on your favorite. The game feels the need to announce it every time you turn on the game, and the loading times aren't exactly at Sonic speed, so it does get a little annoying after a while. There's also the Acorn Festival, where you can get mushroom-themed furniture by exchanging acorns with this guy, Cornimer. Yeah, I don't know. It's a new character, I've never seen him before. Yeah, the special events are a pretty big step down compared to GameCube, but some of them have their own unique charm to them, I suppose. The game is at least presented extremely well. Yeah, sure, the audio is bit crunched and the frame rate is kinda slow, but this is the DS and I really don't care. The sky isn't as realistic in this game as others, but in my opinion, that's for the better. You can get some seriously beautiful looking skies on the occasion, and seeing the stars slowly appear as the night goes on is such a wonderful touch. But you know what else is wonderful? The music. It's just so full of absolute bops that'll set the mood for whatever time of day you're playing. While yes, I do prefer GameCube's hourly themes, Wild Worlds should not be dismissed at all. But you know what? I've been talking way too much about the limitations of the DS hardware. You wanna know the one thing it had that the GameCube wished it did? Nintendo Wi-Fi connection. Through the power of the internet, you can connect with friends and visit each other's villages. Now, this is a feature that's been long gone from Wild World, due to the DS and Wii's online servers shutting down way back in 2014. Suffice to say, I've never experienced this feature, but it was still cool for the time. There are some ways you can connect to private servers, whether that be from homebrewing your 3DS or even through emulation, but I haven't checked them out yet. And luckily, you can still play with friends locally, so it isn't impossible to unlock Nookingtons, which requires you have a friend visit your village beforehand. That also keeps Caitlin and Katie from being obsolete. And, well, there you go. That's Animal Crossing Wild World. Coming into this game without rose-tinted nostalgia goggles has shown me that this game is really good. If you grew up with this game, your childhood is valid. It does stand on its own 2 feet as a completely different experience from GameCube, and while I do prefer the former, this is an absolutely worthy follow-up to that title. Honestly, I think this game is worth getting into even today. Not only will you have a deeper appreciation for the series as a whole, but you also get such a great experience with the villagers and their personalities. If you're tired of playing the same new games, I'd recommend picking this one up. It does fall short in some areas due to the console it was on, but it also brought a whole lot to the table. The rolling log system, the sky, flower breeding, new locations and characters, customization features, and while I did downplay the special events, they are really endearing and you can't find them anywhere else. Even if it isn't the flashiest Animal Crossing game, it still has a lot of charm in its simplistic nature, and should be commended for what it did to the franchise. I'm so glad I got into this game and created some memories.
Alright, this might have been my, longest video. Still may be some longer videos. Okay!
So the light coming out soon.
No!
There's no way this could get any worse. It's worse.